And I think, oops, I've got to push another button. That's interesting. Okay,
see.
there we go. We're
There
live.
we go. I
We're
see the
live.
live button
Okay,
going.
there we go.
All these
Go
buttons, too many
live.
buttons.
Too many buttons to push.
Yeah.
And I'm not technologically savanted. Anyway, hi, I'm Blaine Bartlett, and you're not. And this is Dolan White, and you're not him either.
Exactly. I'm Dolan. Yeah, one of the two of us is the other.
This is the power of you with Blaine and Dolan, or with Dolan and Blaine, and I'm out of focus. Yeah. What's going on with that? There we go.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just really fuzzy today. I mean,
that's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you right now. If we don't kill them with content, we'll kill them with good looks.
Hey, good looks. There you go. Gotta be good looks. I mean,
gotta be good looks.
You gotta look good. Don't let them see you sweat.
That's right. Square jaw. Look them in the eye.
Yes.
Okay.
Bring it. Back up. See where we're at.
Yes, sir.
This Power of You series, I love doing this with you. This is just such a hoot. We get to go some spelunking in some very interesting areas around this whole leadership, and it makes a difference. Yeah, I think we're at least for me, we're bringing some interesting content to folks. For the sake of what? Well, for the sake of how do you? I mean, I was thinking about this today, Dolan. I don't think people give one squat really about developing leadership expertise in one sense. It's kind of like I want to develop my leadership expertise for. Why would I want to do that? Well, if you happen to be involved in a business, so you can learn how to more effectively scale your business, would be probably the biggest reason that you would want to actually pay some attention to what the hell we're talking about here.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good point, because this whole thing around, the power of you, and we are focused on stuff that people can go apply and leave every session that we do, to go apply during this lunch hour on Thursday. But it really is, it's funny you say that, Blaine, because it is about, what are you going to do with it? Well, what you're going to do with it is go grow your business.
Go grow your business. Yeah.
You're going to scale your company, and there's all kinds of aspects to that. But that's the intention behind all this, is here's something that will help you go figure stuff out, grow your business, and do more good. Go do more good.
Now there's a novel idea.
That's right. Go do philanthropic things. Go do more good. You can't do that without growing your business.
And you can't grow your business unless you're an effective leader. I mean, it literally comes down to that. So leadership becomes a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool. And if you're looking at mastery, I came across this. I used to study. Well, I still do. But when I lived in Japan, I studied martial arts, specifically Aikido. Mm-hmm. And there's a term in Aikido that's called, in the Japanese word is shogyu. Shogyu. And it's organized around self-mastery. And self-mastery has two components to it. One is the skill set that I need to master. What is it that I actually need to learn how to do? But the other piece of it has to do with integrating that into self. So you think of a cart going down a pathway, you need two wheels, at least two wheels, in order to get down this pathway and carry what it is that you're intending to have delivered at some point in time. A large part of what this Power of You is about for me is an exploration of what does it take to be masterful in the process of leading, such that I can effectively, with minimal unintended consequences, scale my business in a manner that I'm proud of, and I make a difference. Yeah,
it's funny. And there's a great story you tell about that when you were studying about the master who could not get knocked off center. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll take it. That's kind of what it would be great for you to share that story. But that's good for people to listen to this. It's because it's a great exercise, and it's a good insight. But it really is about, to your point, it's that journey and the mastery. Part of the fun I have is, as we're going through it, we always start with a rough script, and we kind of know where we're going and what we're doing. We don't follow it.
No. Why would we do that?
No, the other stuff that's in our head comes out, but it is that stuff that is the intention, which helps people kind of find that center of balance. Let's take a minute, tell that story, because I think this is something that, especially today for our topic today, this is a good one for today.
Yeah. Well, the story is pretty simple. And, like I said, I was studying Aikido, and the sensei, the teacher, was a little sprite of a man. He had studied with one of the original founders of the martial art of Aikido. The lineage went back to the turn of the 19th century. Not the turn of the 19th century, turn of the 20th century. But the point being,
I wasn't gonna say you're not that old.
He's
but
not
that's
that old.
okay.
I'm not that old. But I was watching him, and what was going on in this particular day was there was an upgrading. People were testing for the next level. So in order to go from a white belt to a brown belt to different, they're called Dan levels. You have to do something, and one of the things that they do in the testing is something that's called a randori. And a randori, if you've ever seen a Jackie Chan movie or a Bruce Lee movie, you've got the hero in the center, and then all the evil people, that surround, and they're always in a circle of some sort.
Right.
They come at him all at once. They come at her all at once, and Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, they just kind of bounce them off walls, and they're unscathed. Well, I was watching my sensei in a randori situation, and this guy was like a ballet dancer. And again, he was only about 5 foot tall, weighed 100 pounds, soaking wet. Was about 73 years of age at that time.
Yeah.
And it was just like watching this incredibly beautiful ballet. I just sat there with my mouth open. And at the end of the session, I spoke enough Japanese to get myself in trouble, but I asked him, I said, Sensei, how do you manage to stay centered all the time? Because that was my experience of watching him. He was completely centered. There was just this. And he said, that's not what's going on here. I am continuously off balance in a randori, and you will be too. But the difference between you and me is I know where my center is, and I can quickly come back to it because the center is my source of power. It's my source of resourcefulness. So his practice for literally in his case was over 50 years of practice. He was intuitively aware of where his center, both the physical center, but also the emotional and spiritual centers and the intellectual centers. He knows where those are. And when he gets popped, he can quickly come back because that's the only place he can be resourceful. Otherwise, if he's off balance, he's only got really one move, which is to counteract the force that drew him off balance.
Yeah.
Where it's antithetical to Aikido. Aikido is not pushing against the force, it's using the force.
Yeah.
The Wu Wei sort of a move. So I never forgot that lesson. And it really re-emphasized to me, what's the importance of knowing what my center is? What are the attributes of my center? And can I trust, and this is kind of where we're going with today, can I trust myself in the knowing of where my center is, that I can come back to it so that I can now handle what just happened out there? Yeah. Because it did knock me for a loop. Now I have to come back, and I need to deal with it. How I deal with it makes a difference. Yeah. And that's where self-trust comes into play.
Love that. So let's get into it.
Let's just
that's a great not follow the script story. So tell that story.
Tell that story. What story? Oh, that story. Okay.
Oh, that one.
So, Power of You. Continue.
Here we are.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to be with you all year long. Yeah, we got more content than God here. So
that's right.
We'll keep coming back every Thursday, just to show up and wax poetic.
Come join
today. We're going to be focusing on, and we'll have another slide here in just a minute here, but the 4 pillars that support your ability to lead effectively. Okay, I'll just kind of put it in that framework here. Yeah. The first 2 that we're going to take a look at here is trust and autonomy. Trust and autonomy. And it's kind of like hand and glove. These do go together. And most people will look at them as two separate entities, and they are. I mean, they're separate to a degree, but they actually come together in a very powerful way if you understand what's going on with it.
Yeah. And it's funny because in kind of coming up with the kind of the bullets around this, when we get to this slide, this is really, so what's on your mind when you're thinking about trust and autonomy as a leader? A lot of leaders, and we have, you'll see in prior powers of views, we've talked about the 5 lies, and this kind of hooks into the five lies around trust. But when you think of, as a leader, you struggle letting go because nobody can do it as good as you can, and you struggle with that, and that's you're gonna, I got this is my better right than correct, but anyway, better right than correct move. But you struggle with that. You worry, fear about that empowering others is going to lead to mistakes. That it's not gonna. There's going to be mistakes, and if there's mistakes, well, there's going to be punitive stuff. We could crash this thing into the rocks. There's going to be mistakes. We'll hear us talk about communication and further ones, but there's unclear or sporadic communication, and unclear clarity breeds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's an immutable law. Clarity breeds confidence. If it's unclear or sporadic, you break trust. And you're not sure how to do it. You're reluctant. And this is, I love this one around vulnerability and accountability. When we get into that, that's and transparency. We lean into that a little bit.
Yeah, that's next week. Communication and transparency. We're going to open that door up.
Oh yeah, for the sake of transparency, we next week, and you have a challenge establishing accountability systems. When we talk about accountability, systems of accountability is not. I'll say this every time. Not Trello. It's not Asana. It's not tasks. It's not Google Tasks. Accountability is this system of accountability that we establish together, where we have a mutual agreement and we become accountable to each other, and we stay with that. And there's a system that goes into place built on trust. That supports that. This is the cornerstone. So that's what a lot of folks are trying to figure this stuff out. It's like, and we're going to talk about a lot of this today.
So and again, put this in the context of scaling. If these are some concerns that you are working with, and these are very pervasive, they're almost universal concerns that leaders have. You're not going to be able to scale efficiently or effectively. Okay, and the pinch point becomes you. The pinch point becomes you, and scaling. An old axiom in leadership is that people will give you what they perceive you're willing to settle for. They'll never give you what you ask for. And if you're asking for greater and greater and scalability, but you are not in a position to let go of some of these things or to address some of these things, you're going to continue to get reluctance. People unwilling to act autonomously, unwilling to take risks because they don't trust the consequence of a mistake happening. I mean, all of that stuff gets bundled in here, and that is a consequence. This is where the power of you comes in. That is a function of how you show up as a leader. So how do we begin to address that?
Yeah, and we're going to get into this, right? I love my old friend, W. Clement Stone. For you youngsters out there, look up W. Clement Stone. He was a fascinating guy. But the thinking will not overcome fear. Action will.
Yep. W. Clement Stone was a mentor to Napoleon Hill, which was interesting.
Yeah.
And Hill actually quotes him quite often, both in the Think and Grow Rich, but also in one of my favorite Napoleon Hill books, which is Outwitting the Devil. Which is a fascinating book. But he specifically speaks to W. Clement Stone's advice and mentoring. And he kept coming back to nothing's going to overcome fear but action. You have to put things in gear and start moving. Okay? Yeah,
it's funny. Not to digress, but I had a conversation with a client this week specifically about this topic. I'm fearful. And so my next question was, so tell me the actions you're taking.
Yep.
I'm stuck. Tell me what small steps you can go take. Go until you take those small steps, the famous philosopher Will Smith says, God put the greatest things in life on the other side of fear, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we go on.
We use these reference models in every client engagement. We use them every presentation. If you've been watching this, you've seen this before. We're going to be focusing on the right-hand model, the 4 pillars model. The leadership universe model is the contextual framing for highly effective leadership, and the why, what, how is the vision, strategy, tactics piece. The mindset is where 95% of behavior derives. This is where, this is really where you want to be exploring in order to find ways to actually, improve your ability to scale your business, to scale your life, to grow. Yeah. Because what happens when you start exploring mindset is you begin to open the door into the spirit, which is the creative source of everything and anything. You want to be finding ways to tap into spirit. So we're not going to talk about the leadership universe so much in the next 4 sessions. We're going to be focusing on the 4 pillars of leadership as a reference model. So trust, you can read these as well as I can. Trust and autonomy, communication, transparency, systems of accountability, growth and innovation. Today, we're looking at trust and autonomy. So before I flip to the next slide here, is there anything that you want to add to that circle, commentary wise?
No, I love it because I think not to get past the leadership universe a little too quickly, but in the leadership universe, so when most people talk about the how, what, why, right? The top 3 tactical layers. It is that mindset. The fun thing about being a leader in any organization is you work with people.
Yeah.
So you're speaking to minds, right? And so that mindset piece becomes very important. And where we're focusing from the 4th, mindset and spirit, and we'll be spending some time in leadership universe. Maybe that's our next series after this. Just those 2 pieces. But these 4 pillars are, so how do you act with those? How do you blend with those? Because the tactical things, there's 1,000 ways to come after it. Mindset, spirit, and soul, because they're single player games. So how do you actually move into trust and autonomy? And trust is one of those words it's funny, I was having another conversation this week around the word trust, and I was telling him it's kind of like when people say, I'm going to the doctor. All right, is it a dentist? Tell me what kind of optometrist? Where are you going? Trust is that kind of word. When people say trust, it can mean many different things. So we're gonna peel that apart a little bit. So that's my added to the 4 pillars. There you go.
Yeah, I love it. And just as a graphic in your mind here, this leadership universe model actually sits on these 4 pillars. So think of these 4 pillars as foundational posts, that you actually can build your leadership effectiveness off of and on. So when things get rattling, if you've got these 4 pillars in place and they're solidly set, all of this other stuff is these become guardrails, and they become informational signposts as we start moving ourselves towards scaling our organizations. So that being said, let's take a look here at how we define leadership itself. Very specific definition, folks. This is really specific. Dylan and I together have got about 90 plus years of experience working with leadership development and organizations large and small. I mean, you've been CEO in a couple of different firms, a COO in one. You just came out of a COO position. I've founded a couple of companies, have led leadership initiatives around the world for some of the largest companies in the world, as well as startups. And the only reason I'm mentioning that has to do with that aggregation of experience has led us to define leadership in a real specific way. It's, as you can read this, it's the activity. Leaders cause movement. That's what they do. They cause things to happen. They cause change. Not everybody's effective at doing that. Effectiveness is a function of leadership in a very specific way. Leadership effectiveness is born out of this definition. It's the activity of influencing others, Command and control disappears. You're not, this is state of being. This is presence. Co-creating, ownership transfers. It's not just my idea anymore in my head. And Dolan mentioned mind to mind. You now are communicating in a way that what's in here is transferred into their mind as well, in a way that is, high fidelity. I mean, there's very little noise in this. The picture is a true picture. And now there's a for the sake of what that comes into play here that we're going to talk about in a minute. When I have effectively transferred my idea to you, it has been done in a way that you've identified for yourself what's in it for you. Why is this important to me? The recipient of that vision, that idea, that objective. Why is that important to me? And then we're going to move into a territory that we've never been before, because by definition, you're causing movement. And if you're not moving someplace that you've never been before, you're not growing. So when you get into that unknown territory, coordinated movement becomes a really important piece. And here's the key, here's the paradox on coordinated movement. It's not about harmony. It's not about singing kumbaya. It's about how do I effectively use conflict to both kind of clean ourselves up. It generates heat, but also what is, conflict can shine light on different things. It's like, oh God, I didn't know about this. This is where mindset exploration occurs when you're willing to engage conflict. And that is a really important point to make here. Coordinated movement, I guarantee you, we're going to step on each other's toes. We can't not. But how do we actually do this dance in a way that gets us to a point where we continue moving forward with minimal unintended consequences in pursuit of something that we all value? And that's where this pursuit of a worthy ideal comes into play. How do you define success? Was I well used in my life? Were the ideals that I was striving to produce, experience, achieve, were they worthy of who I am? A 10% revenue increase is not a worthy ideal. Guaranteed. It's not a worthy ideal. It's just a check a box thing because somebody said it was a good idea to continue growing revenue. For the sake of what? For the sake of what? That's where the worthy ideal is hidden, is in that question, for the sake of what? So that's my 8 bars on it. Do you have 4 or 5 to add to that?
Just and as a leader, when you see this defining leadership, right? Influencing others, co-creating, coordinated movement, pursuit of a worthy ideal. When you think about, and as we get into the conversation around trust here in a little bit, when you think about your conversations, your meetings, your strategies, the things that you're doing to lead the team, whether you're inheriting strategy from up on high and you're just getting it. But when you think about that and you're engaging with with your teams, think about these individual components and use them as bellwethers in your planning and your thinking and your forethought. What am I doing to influence, not motivate? What am I doing to influence? What am I influencing? Because it's maintained on inspiration, because the others is your team. How are we co-creating? How am I engaging them in this? How am I ensuring that there's co-ownership? What are we doing to coordinate that there's good communication and trust? Because we talk about trust today. And the worthy ideal. You got to know the worthy ideal. And to Blaine's point, 10% and a worthy ideal.
Yeah, 10% revenue increase. Yay!
That's a thing.
The forklift operator does not care squat about a 10% revenue growth.
Nope. He or she are just moving pallets. Here we go.
So we mentioned, for the sake of what, a couple of times here. And this is the worthy ideal. How do you know it's a worthy ideal? Well, this is where you start to get, this question, for the sake of what, answered. For the sake of what is not your vision, it's not your goals, and it's not your objectives. That is not the worthy ideal. And it's also not the for the sake of what. For the sake is the answer to what matters to me, what matters to us. That's the worthy ideal. It's what matters to us, what really matters. I do a lot of work with high net worth family offices. I was doing some work a couple of weeks ago, and we had about $3 billion in the room. And these families, they're multi-generational, and as a consequence, they've got different expectations about how to use this wealth, particularly when it's being transferred from one generation to the next. Who's going to run the business? Is anybody going to run the business? Why am I being excluded or included? If we don't have a conversation about what matters, everything goes off the rails real quickly, because then it becomes transactional. Then it becomes about goals and objectives. What matters for the family? And the family metaphorically can be, the people in your organization. So when you're looking at scaling, we're going to grow. Why does that matter? Why does that matter? If I'm a forklift operator moving pallets from point A to point B, and you're trying to scale this organization, why does it matter to me that we're looking at acquiring a new company in Timbuktu? Why would that matter to me? What do I get to do, be, or have that I wouldn't get to do, be, or have if we didn't make that acquisition? What does it make possible for me? That's where we start getting into what matters.
Yeah.
And that's where you get emotional engagement from people as opposed to compliance.
Right. Yeah. Love that. I got to expand. I got to pursue one thing around. So again, as we're working with our clients and working together with clients, it's fun because one of the things that we talk about periodically, we'll talk about it. When you talk to clients about core values, they've got core value number 1, core value number 2, core value number 3, all the way down to core value number, however many core values they got. And people forget about core value 0. Core value 0 is the worthy ideal.
Yeah.
That is the core. That is the core value. And there are things that instrument that. Being profitable instruments that ability to accomplish the work. But it is these things. Core value 0 is your worthy ideal. It is that thing. So anyway,
how do we build on this? Yeah.
Let's build on that. Trust.
Got the 4 pillars: trust and autonomy. Take it away.
Trust and autonomy. So without taking a lot of time, just a little bit of a background on the 4 pillars. And the reason why the 4 pillars exist is, having been a CEO and done other things in companies, there are things that we learn by doing things well. And there are things that we learn by completely doing things not as well. And in one of the lessons, in charge of an organization, running an organization, was to make an assumption that you can just take an overlay, take a system and throw it over the top of your company and things are going to instantly improve. Well, sometimes it doesn't work. So where the 4 pillars came out of was years and years, decades of practical experience. And the very first thing I did in the organization when I went, oh, here we go, we're going to overlay the system. And I'm not going to mention it by name because it would be inappropriate. But when you overlay that system, well, the very first thing I did was I shattered trust and I broke everybody's opportunity to get something done on their own. And I became an automatic micromanager, just automatically. So the 4 pillars came out of an evolution of 40 years of experience, but in specifics, spent a lot of time over the last decade and a half kind of focusing in on it. But it really is, if we think about trust as the cornerstone, it's trust. It's not just about believing your team. Trust starts with you.
Yep.
It's about believing your own capacity as a leader. You create the conditions for success. Strategy doesn't create the condition for success. Planning, you create that condition. So trust is that belief in yourself. And then autonomy. Autonomy is that, and I love the word courage. Autonomy is the courage to step back and let things happen. It may not happen the way you would do it. Yep. Because the person doing it is not you, but they bring value to the table that only they have. So trust is that system that you set up that creates a condition for people to succeed.
Yep.
Autonomy is the courage to let them go try.
And what's interesting, research data, and I can cite a couple of examples here that I won't right now, just the interest of time. But autonomy is one of the linchpin attributes of highly effective teams, highly effective organizations, where autonomy, people's ability to be who they are, to make decisions autonomously in concert with what it is that we're trying to make happen. It doesn't mean that they're running all over the place, but there's an aligning principle. And that's what this begins to create, is an aligning principle. In order to have people be autonomous, act autonomously, I should say, there is a fair degree, and this is the paradox, there's a fair degree of interdependence that comes into play. They're not completely independent, although they are autonomous.
Yes.
In the way that they operate, because they get to use it. I was sailing in the British Virgin Islands a bunch of years ago, and we had a breakdown on a boat engine, and we were on the far side of an island, and the marina sent out a mechanic. And he showed up, and he's down in the engine room, kind of doing what he's doing. And I looked in on him, and I said, because he was jury rigging this thing. He didn't have a part, so he was making something up. And I said, that is really interesting. And he looked at me and he says, yeah, man, sometimes they don't pay me to think, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. And he fixed the boat. He got us going, and it worked for the next week and a half until we got back to the marina. But they don't pay me to think, but sometimes I do. That's where autonomy comes into play. I've never forgotten that.
That's very true. It's funny you say that, because autonomy doesn't mean just wandering. It doesn't mean just wandering around out there. But yeah, that's very cool. I love that.
So, let's break this down a little bit. Trust and autonomy. So there's some things that happen with trust, and run with it here.
All right, I'll go. So when I use the word reciprocal in this, because trust is a reciprocal thing, right? When we talk about trust, right, and I like this phrase a lot. It's a single player game. Trust is single player, and to kind of put things out there, right? Building trust. If you close your eyes as a leader and you go, if I'm going to build trust with an individual, it's 5 to 7 interactions, and it's 3 to 6 months of consistent behavior, delivering on what you promise. 5 to 7 interactions, 3 to 6 months of delivering on what you promise. And the place that starts is creating your trust in yourself as a leader, which means we're thinking about it becomes, and it says in the bulletin, you guys have all read the slide by the time I talk about all this, I need to trust myself before I can truly trust you. Mm-hmm. There is the experience, and we'll get into what the other people are seeing when trust is involved, your team. But I firmly believe that when an individual isn't authentic with self-trust and just says, oh, just trust me, we smell it on them. We know, to use a redneck colloquialism, we can smell it, and we know. And so we have to develop that self-trust, and we have to develop that self-trust because we continue to do a couple things, right? We focus on our confidence, and there's a thing, Blaine and I teach a 5-day leadership challenge. We'll invite you to it, but we teach a 5-day leadership challenge. One of the very first things we talk about is I am, and confidence. And when you engender confidence or build confidence in yourself, I am confident in my leadership. You're going to be imperfect, but I am confident in my leadership. And when you maintain that confidence, it empowers others to believe in you, and it gives you the ability to lead more authentically, because you can't fake authenticity.
Right.
And you got to trust yourself. The last bullet there. Yeah. When you want to do you do the next column.
Yeah. Well,
we'll flip it.
We'll flip it here. So once I trust myself, I can confidently extend genuine trust to others on my team. Now, I'm going to go back to the dojo, to the Aikido dojo, and my sensei master. how do you find your center? Well, you find your center by using trust as one of the mechanisms. I trust myself to handle the consequences of what's going on around me. I trust myself to handle the consequences of this decision, this move. And when I begin to trust myself, it becomes far less difficult for me to trust others. Now, I'm going to be paying attention to some things around competency, around consistency, around character. I mean, those sorts of things. But I know that I can handle the consequences if I skip a beat or if I miss a signal somewhere. I can handle it. And that gives, I mean, there's an interesting, and this kind of goes back to the whole influencing piece of leadership, influencing, not command and control. I influence through my state of being. One of the things that informs a solid state of being, one of confidence, one of you can count on me, sort of a flavor, without you opening your mouth, is that sense of self-trust. It's a foundational component that allows you to be present in any given situation. So that's where empowerment, innovation, and accountability start to become possible. Yeah. And it begins again with, recognizing you're a pinch point. Yeah. In any organizational environment here. And if trust is an issue in your organization, I will guarantee you it begins with you in some way, shape, or form. There's nobody out there but you. Nobody out there but you. And what you're seeing is a reflection back of something that's going on internally. So when you begin to integrate this notion of trusting, in a very fundamental way, you start demonstrating trust in a way that inspires reciprocal trust from your team members. And what this is, where this becomes really important is, again, remember, we're moving into unknown territory. By definition, leadership moves us into unfamiliar, uncharted territory. Does the team trust you? They're going to want some sense of certainty. You're never going to be able to give them that. But if they can get a sense that, they can count on you when things go sideways, now you've got a basis by which they're going to start saying, I don't know everything, and I trust that we'll find it out as we go along.
Yeah.
And my head won't be handed to me if I make a misstep. Okay.
It's interesting you say all that, because I think there's one thing that and I'm going to go back to your study in martial arts and Aikido. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about being off balance, and for those of you who are listening to this, this is an ongoing practice.
Yeah.
You're never a master.
Absolutely.
And you're going to screw stuff up, to use a technical term. You're going to screw some stuff up in doing these things. But practice, keep practicing. Yep. And don't get discouraged. And when we talk about self-trust as foundation, I got to trust me before I can trust anybody. There's moments when you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to say, holy crap, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yep.
And you're going to put your pants on and you're going to, or whatever you're wearing for that day, so if you're wearing pants, then you're going to step out. Well, I'm about to go on vacation. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So who knows what's going to come out of my mouth today. So, but it's that opportunity to continually practice that. And it is the other analogy as you were kind of going through it. I was thinking about, when you're on an airplane and since I'm going to be boarding an airplane, the very first thing they say is, hey, look, if there's sudden cabin pressure loss for as many flights as we all had, should we experience sudden cabin pressure loss, an oxygen mask will appear from the ceiling above your head. Put your mask on first.
Yep.
If you're going to build trust, put your mask on first. Fix you. Start there, or at least get on that path. And you can't do it by yourself. You got to get help to do that. Anyway, next one.
Moving right along here.
Dun, dun, dun.
The power of autonomy. So we're looking at trust and autonomy. Again, glove in a hand sort of a thing here.
Yeah.
Autonomy starts with self-leadership. I need to give myself permission to let go of control and trust the process. So I'm in a system. We've got work processes. We've got work procedures. We've got a system that's in play here. I don't need to micromanage this thing. And if trust is in place, in myself, I'm going to trust that my people will know best what to do in a given situation. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they've been well trained in what to do. So that, there's complexity with this. So in order for you to let go of your death grip on control, you want to be sure that people have the skill set, the knowledge, and the actual demonstrated competency to do what it is that you're asking them to do. Yeah. But there's a developmental component in that. So that's where this next bullet point comes in, knowing when to step in and when to step back. What's required here? Again, you're moving into unknown territory. Is there skill development that needs to be addressed? Because we now need to learn something that we've never known how to do before. Okay. Is there something we need to let go of? Okay. If we're going to let go of that, what's going to replace it? So those questions start to come into play here. So I have to be, coming back to myself all the time on this, and my ability to lead myself sets the tone for how I allow others to lead. Everybody in your organization is a leader. They're all always causing movement in some way, shape, or form. By using yourself as an example, you begin to encourage them to step into a conscious step in to the role of leader. It's not about title. It's not about position. It's not about anything other than they're making things happen. They are causing movement. Is that movement getting us in the direction that we'd like to go, or is it taking us off course? So when you're putting autonomy into your quiver, so to speak, and you're working to have people be more autonomous, there are some parameters that you want to put in place here. And a large part of it starts with recognizing that for the sake of what? Here's what we're moving towards. That becomes the metric. That becomes the litmus gauge. Are we doing that as elegantly as we possibly can? Which actually moves us into the whole empowering others with autonomy. And I'll just pass this over to you.
Oh, thank you. So, but it's funny because when we think about, and boy, I'll tell you, those are, when we do these lunch breaks with the Power of You with Blaine and Dolan, we could spend a long time. These are days long conversations around building autonomy and systems and all the things that go into it. But there are a couple of things that I just want to call out in this, which is when you think of autonomy as a gift. You were talking about statistics earlier, Blaine, and one of the statistics I read the other day was about retention. I was thinking about retention and the benefits of trust and blah, blah, blah. And we're always careful about statistics, right? Because statistics can be created in multiple kinds of fashions. But one of the biggest statistics that I noticed was, in particularly with the workforce that's coming into power today, right? One of the things that caused lack of retention was micromanagement.
Yes.
And lack of belief, lack of trust. And I love that, but when you think about it, it's a gift. When I empower you, and empowering means I'm not just going to cut you loose. It means I'm going to create systems that support you, training that supports you, teams all of that. Empowering means I'm going to give you a full tank of gas, and I'm going to trust that I'm going to let you, and you act, and you're empowered. I'm telling you, I believe in you, which engenders loyalty, retention, the benefits of when we talk about scaling a business, right? There's the cost of turnover inside of any business. So when you're empowering others with autonomy, and particularly in our disconnected workforce, our Zoom-based workforce still out there today, and the age and generations of the workforce that are coming into the economic control, believing in them and demonstrating belief becomes a critical component to moving your business forward. And something as a leader, when you manage yourself or lead yourself, it's something you have to master. Delegating with clarity, and we can spend a lot of time talking about techniques to delegation, proper ways to delegate. You just can't go, oh, okay, and they say, I got it, and it's all going to happen. Not going to happen. No, but delegating with clarity. Again, clarity breeds confidence. And autonomy doesn't mean absence. Autonomy doesn't mean you go away. What do you mean? What do you mean? That's a surprise. It means intentional support. Two different things. Intentional support, without micromanagement? How do I support you to accomplish it? And it's kind of, it leads into that, when am I leaning in and when am I leaning out?
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? So when you're thinking of creating autonomy in your organization, I love these two columns and the thinking around this, around the gift of believing,
Mm-hmm.
self-leading. So back to you get the left column. There you go.
I did the left one already. Yes.
There you
Okay.
go.
So we use the word symptoms here as opposed to consequences. And the reason we're using symptoms is because in most organizations, what we both have found over our our 9 decades of experience, where we got white hair, is that almost always managers and leaders, management and leadership are two different things here, but we'll just kind of mesh them together. They see something and they go, wow, let's fix that. And but basically what's showing up is a symptom of some underlying, that has an underlying cause. But the focus is not to understanding what the underlying cause is. Typically, the focus is, let's just make that go away. Let's put a Band-Aid on it in some way, shape, or form. So some of the symptoms when you don't have trust or when autonomy is not as robust as it needs to be, you end up micromanaging. And you can read these slides faster than we can actually talk about them here.
Yeah.
But micromanaging, getting in the weeds, redoing work, telling them that they should have done it differently because that's how you wanted it to be done. I mean, that sort of stuff can really sabotage things quickly. There's a root cause of that. And that kind of goes back up in the very first slide that we showed. Okay.
Yeah.
Fear of letting go. And what if they don't do it the way that I do it? That all of that stuff.
It won't be as good. It's not going to be as good. It's not the color purple I wanted.
Exactly. It's shades off.
Oh my God. But when you as you see this slide, and grab a screen copy of the slide, but as you see this slide, this is not just about you, but right as you're focusing as a leader, causing momentum inside of your organization, and you're scaling your business so that you're moving towards that worthy ideal, right? And you're doing that on a consistent basis. Look at your team and kind of think about these questions. Am I seeing others in my team micromanage?
Mm-hmm.
Are they mirroring my behavior? Because your team will mirror your behavior.
Yes, they will.
If you're seeing issues with delegation, it's probably because you're not delegating. Could very well be, right?
And if you're looking to scale your business and you are not actively looking for ways to offload some of the stuff that you're doing, or having other people on your team offload some of the things that they're doing, you're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to scale because there's too much collected in just a very minimal number of hands.
Yeah.
You can't juggle them all.
No. And anyway, there's
over-directing is different than micromanaging. Yeah.
Oh yes.
I mean, it's
good point.
Here's the outcome that I want. Okay, fine. Autonomy is, you guys go do it. Here's the outcome that we're looking for. Go do it. You know how to do that. Over-directing is, you go do that this way. Here's what you need to do. You need to be sure that. If only, it's kind of like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm a grown adult. I've been doing this for 30 years. You're trying to tell me how to run my die machine? Yeah. No, it's not going to fly. That's a symptom of some underlying piece that is usually rooted in trust, such that you're not willing to let it go and have them be autonomous and do it their way.
Pardon me.
So again, these are symptoms of some underlying component. The final piece here is keeping people in the dark. Yeah.
Yeah, and just withholding. And there's many symptoms that we talk when we look inside of an organization. This is 4 of many symptoms around things that break trust and autonomy. But as you think of these, that's why the thing we want you to take away from these conversations with Power of You is it is about you. We want you to focus on these skills, these capabilities, these things. You have the desire. Because you're here, you have the desire. If you have the desire, you have the inspiration. Now it's what the heck do you do with it?
Yeah.
So when you think about this, also think about it in terms of how do you apply it, and you apply it within the organization. And a lot of that, and I love when you were talking earlier about the pinch point constraints,
Yeah.
I was thinking there's a revenue opportunity there. I think what we can do is we can market a product and we could put it in a really big box and call it the single biggest solution to discovering the pinch point in your organization, and just have the whole thing bubble wrap with a mirror about this big.
Yeah. There's a mirror in there.
Here, pull the mirror out, look in the mirror. There you go. There's your pinch point.
Yeah.
So as you think about these symptoms, use them for that purpose, because it's like getting well. As you exercise these muscles, focus on these symptoms, it heals you as a leader and heals your team to being led. So think of it kind of through that light. And I'm going to make a note about the mirror thing. So if you see us offering a mirror,
a box with
$9.99, but wait, there's more. So we'll come back to that.
Such a deal we've got for you.
Yeah.
So a couple of other things here.
More symptoms. We'll go through this quickly. Lack of initiative. Team members only do bare initiative. This is a symptom of no trust, no autonomy. On the team side, they're only going to do their bare minimum, and they're not going to take ownership because they are afraid of punitive action. If I don't think you have my back, I'm going to do just enough to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do any more. Team members will only rise to the level of expectation you set for them.
And they use you as an example of what what you're willing to settle for. People give you what they perceive you're willing to settle for. They heard what you asked for, but what are you willing to settle for? That's kind of baked into your presence.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yes, your full influence
indeed.
Here.
Yep.
So the second point here, it's a symptom. It's second guessing. Well, we could have, we should have. How come we didn't? It's kind of like, these are not effective after action review questions. Okay. Yes. Second guessing it's kind of around the water cooler, kind of talk. Well, I heard him say that, but I don't think they really meant that. No. I think, and if we go down this path, this too shall pass. We'll just ignore that. Yeah. And the reason for that has to do with communication. People weren't willing to speak up in the meeting and call bullshit or say, wait a minute, I don't understand that. Or this doesn't make sense to me. For the sake of what do you want us to do this? None of that happened in the meeting.
Yep.
None of that happened in the meeting because there wasn't trust and people didn't have enough autonomy to say for themselves, I need this for me in order to be effective for you. Help me help you win.
Yeah. It's funny because that's so true. That there won't be the question that says, hey, I'm not clear.
Yep.
Let me just, who was it? Gosh, what was the detective's name that, we always run, one more
Columbo.
One more question. Put your long raincoat on. One more question. And then a little morale. And I just kind of alluded to that earlier, but look, when you do this and you build distrust in your organization, you will cause churn.
Yep.
You will cook your people, and you will have great people leave for greener grass, for what they consider a greener pasture, right? I'm going to go there. And then either it will or won't be. But if you see that kind of a movement in your organization from a morale perspective and your turnovers, why is my turnover going from 11 to 20%? Why am I blah, 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 blah? Think about the root: trust, autonomy. Think about those things, because people will go where they feel trusted. We're wired for that.
Yep.
It will happen.
It will happen. Yeah.
So
this is our little soapbox spiel around trust and autonomy as two elements of the four pillars. Next week we're going to be looking at two others, communication and oh god, my brain just went dead.
And
transparency.
Here we go.
Yeah. Whisper in my ear. Yeah. So that's next week. But right now, you guys just had a fire hose that was filled up pretty much all the way coming at you.
Yeah.
This is all recorded. It's available on both of our YouTube channels, so you can come back and revisit it. We invite you to do that. It's free. It's easily accessible. But one of the things that we want to begin to consider is, what's next? How do you use this? How do you integrate this? Again, I'm going to come back to self-mastery. Shogyu. That Japanese term, shogyu.
Yeah.
There's a skill set that needs to be developed and learned, but there's also an integration component. How do I integrate it into my way of being? That's the trick. That's the trick. So studies show over and over and over again, only about 20 to 30% of participants in any professional or developmental program actually follow through on action plans. And that's because there's not a support network in place. Trying to work in this domain of mindset by yourself is bloody difficult. Make no mistake about it. We can't see a lot of stuff, that is tripping us up on a day-to-day basis, because, literally all of our senses are organized to point outward. They aren't organized to point inward. So we miss all kinds of stuff, which is where a support group, a peer group of some sort, that is saying to you, hey, did you notice that? That seems to be some sort of a pattern that keeps cropping up for you. Are you aware of that? That sort of stuff starts to come into play here. So what we're going to suggest is, we've got a mastermind program. We run this 2 times a year. The next one has got a wait list. It begins in June. But we would love to have you explore the option, just to kind of see if there's a there for you. This is the 5th year we've been running these mastermind programs. They're a year-long, 52-week journey that is very specifically targeted almost exclusively at mindset exploration from a leadership perspective. The vision, strategy, tactics piece, we'll talk about that and address it a little bit, but that's not the major focus. We're really looking at what influences your setting of vision, strategy, and tactics. That's mindset. And the spirit piece, when you begin exploring that, all of a sudden you uncork innovation and creativity. Imagination is the gateway to the soul, the gateway to the spirit. So the play of the imagination is something that we actually bring into this conversation quite heavily. And it's not about daydreaming. It's not about willy-nilly imagining. No. It's about really using imagination in the way it's intended to be used, which is as a creative force. A creative force. So the invitation, very simple. There's a wait list that you can get into here, and we would invite you to just kind of go explore the landing page. If it's interesting to you, consider it a Pheno. Love this one, a Pheno invitation. Our friend Mary Morrissey talks about this quite a bit. Pheno, feel invited, not obligated. There's no obligation with this. You just, it's a wait list, for goodness sake. If you're interested, fill out a form. We'll get either Dolan or I will circle back and send you an email or give you a phone call or something like that and answer any questions you got about it. But the landing page itself has got a whole bunch of information on it that should answer a fair number of your questions. But we would love to have you be considering this mastermind as something as your next step. It is fulsome, it's robust, and it's designed as a true mastermind, although it takes 52 weeks. Dolan and I teach every week. You've got both of us doing a session with you every single week for 52 weeks. We got a full curriculum. But then the mastermind component, we break this group into smaller subsets, which become the mastermind components, where you've actually got peers that are bouncing ideas and holding you accountable, holding your feet to the fire, so to speak. So scan the QR code or join, copy that bit.ly code, that URL, and check out the landing page. Ditto. Dr. White?
Ditto. You will see. Look, you will see movement. That's why there's no pitch, there's no discount, there's no, just this is what we're doing. This is right for you. We'll help you understand whether it's right or not right for you, and we'll figure it all out. But ditto. Mr. Bartlett?
We got a late start today, but we're ending exactly with 1 hour. This is an hour-long program. I love how this works. Thank you, sir.
Always fun. Thank you for those who've been watching, leaving comments. Love you. Appreciate you being out here with us. And
we'll see you next week.
Go practice.
Go practice.
Go break some shit. We'll be here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, go. Yeah, open up something. See if you got a screw left over after you put it back together. That's always exciting.
Have an IKEA moment. There you go.
There you go. Okay. We'll see everybody on the next Power Review of Dolan and Blaine and Dolan next Thursday at noon. Lunch at noon.
There you go.
Power Review. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.